Some of the best games are the games that you play as a monster because sometimes being bad is just way more fun. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 games where you play as a monster. Quick disclaimer as to how we picked this. First, it's games where you play as a monster for the majority of the game. Sorry Dead by Daylight, sorry Jak 2, but it's 10 games, so we had to figure out something. And second, we only did one vampire game because otherwise it'd just be vampire games. Seriously, some of the most beloved games of all time are vampire games. There's too many to count. So starting off at number 10, it's Destroy All Humans. Aliens aren't technically monsters unless they're made more monstrous, like a xenomorph or something. But in Destroy All Humans, you're a more traditional 1950s gray alien. But you're absolutely acting like a monster during the course of this. You're on Earth, you're collecting brain stems to extract DNA from to prevent the extinction of your race. So you're basically just farming human DNA, pretty monstrous. You also have a bunch of tools at your disposal to help cause tons of destruction. First and most obviously is a UFO with the death ray. Death ray's pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna use it for the killing. You also have a few different weapons like the Zap-O-Matic, which you can electrocute people with. And you also have the anal probe, which, hey, I don't want to explain, and I'm not gonna. You also have a grenade launcher and, of course, the disintegrator ray, which turns your enemies into ash and leaves nothing but their skeleton. Destroy All Humans is a blast. It's pretty much an alien invasion simulator. There is a remaster that's coming out soon. We've played it. It holds up really well, actually. And I think you'll be surprised how well this game fits in with modern games with just a simple graphical upgrade. I mean, it's from 2005. It's intentionally cheesy, and I love it. Play Destroy All Humans. At number 9 is Stubbs the Zombie. It's weird. The setup is where the weirdness starts. You play as a traveling salesman during the Great Depression who is murdered by his girlfriend's father, who dumped his body into the woods. 26 years later, a city called Punch Bowl is built right on top of where that body was. The primary builder is his girlfriend's son, which he wasn't too stoked about, so he wakes up all pissed off and exacts his revenge. It's a weird setup, but the game is actually pretty damn fun. You run around the city of Punch Bowl, you cause tons of mayhem, you turn citizens into zombies, which is actually the coolest part of the game. It's a lot of fun building up a zombie army, but you're not the only one who does it. They turn other citizens into zombies, so exponentially, you make a zombie outbreak. You don't get to do that too often. I mean, you're basically a disease. How is that not cool? You can only have a few following you in your quote-unquote party at any time, but you can send groups of zombies off in whatever direction you want. It's set in a retro future, which is always cool. I'm a big fan of retro future aesthetic, of course. I mean, it's a big reason why people like Fallout. Next up at number 8, we're talking about Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Yes, this is a movie tie-in game, sure, but it actually really doesn't follow the plot, and it's also just killer. No pun intended. I haven't played this one in a long time. I don't have a working PlayStation at the moment, but it really was up there with the Lion King and the Toy Story tie-in games. Back when movie tie-in games could be good. By the way, we're breaking our rules a little bit here. You can play as a guy with a gun, but mostly you're playing as dinosaurs, and why wouldn't you? Why would you pick the guy with the gun? Play as a raptor, play as the T-Rex, play as the little guys that eat that girl at the beginning of the movie that have an extremely long name I can't say. Play as a dinosaur. It's really cool. Not only do you get to eat people, but you get to go up against other dinosaurs. I mean, playing as a raptor in a raptor versus raptor cage match is even more badass than it sounds. And do I even need to explain to you why playing as a T-Rex is cool? I mean, eating other dinosaurs, eating the dudes. I mean, they're shooting at you and you're like, you know what? Nah, I don't really care. I'm hungry. Yum. At number 7, Prototype is a cool one because it falls into the arena of having a protagonist that is human-ish, but is way more monster than man. You play as Alex Mercer, which you have no idea who you are, you don't remember anything about your past, but hey, you've got shape-shifting abilities. That's cool, right? Slice that dude in half. Alex is hellbent on finding out what the hell happened. Obviously, something had to have happened because nobody else has got these powers. I mean, I mentioned shape-shifting, but he's got so many other abilities as well that he can use to just basically beat the crap out of anything, and, well, dudes are scared. Rightfully so. I mean, look at what he can do. None of these guys were prepared for this. They didn't wake up thinking, I'll have to go up against something that can do this to me. Ow. I mean, there is no chance insurance covered that. Essentially, over the course of the game, you transform parts of your body, these gross, fleshy weapons that you upgrade and develop. I mean, and you're capable of some truly outstanding and unbelievable feats. Like, if you've seen anything from this game in the past, you've probably seen the blade arm, and you can use that to just cut right through basically anyone, but it's not just that. You got these hammer hands you can hit tanks with. You got this meat lasso thing. No one likes that. And these are just like the basics of the game. You use these while you're just running around the city up against dudes and helicopters and vehicles. It's nuts. It's just entirely nuts. It's interesting because while he has a mostly human form, he has basically transcended into the monster territory because, I mean, he literally consumes human enemies. That's kind of like the monster signature thing. And the way that they put this together is a really interesting way of sort of forcing you to relate to what is basically a monster. But it's also really just a fun, hectic game where you're flying all over the place and messing stuff up. Moving on to number 6, we originally weren't going to put this one on the list because we love vampires, and if we'd just done this, there would be tons of vampire games on it. But we decided on including Legacy of Kain Blood Omen because Kain is just kind of a huge jerk. And you're obviously a monster, you're a vampire, you suck blood out of other people, sometimes innocent people. But Kain is also a really self-righteous jerk, and you have to sit through all this drama queen dialogue. It's actually worse than the whole sucking blood thing. What really makes a monster out of Kain is really the ending of the game. You start the whole thing tracking the Circle of the Nine, ready to kill them. You want to find a cure for your vampirism, but through the course of the game, Kain basically becomes fond of his newfound powers, and he starts to accept his disease as a blessing rather than a curse. Eventually, after taking out 8 of the 9, he finds out that he is the 9th. Plot twist alert. And that the cure to his vampirism is simply death, which would rid the world of vampires forever. Players get the choice, what they want to do, but the real ending is Kain choosing to leave and turning Nosgoth into a wasteland, which is just a monstrous dick move. It's pretty monstrous to choose to save yourself and destroy basically everything, making this an obvious monster choice. Wouldn't you agree? Moving on to number 5, The Darkness is just one of many different games that tackles the duality of man and monster as contained in a single entity. Obviously, this is one of the ones that does it the best though, which is why we're talking about it here. In The Darkness, you play as Jackie Estacado, who on his 21st birthday is marked for death and has a hit placed on him by the mob. Eventually, as night falls, however, an ancient demonic entity known as the Darkness, which has plagued Jackie's bloodline for generations, manifests in Jackie and really just massacres the ever-loving crap out of all your pursuers, giving you a whole new set of demonic powers as you go to take on the drug lords, particularly the one who tried to take you out. I mean, you can go through and shoot people with guns, but I don't know why you would. All the monstrous abilities that you are granted are just totally insane. Like, you can just use these gross, creeping, dark tentacles to sneak along the floor, walls, ceilings. You can get the drop on pretty much anybody, take them out from a distance. You can create black holes that gobble up anything in the vicinity. You can break down walls in the environment. Hell, there's even these little guys called Darklings that are basically little gremlins that do your bidding from a distance. It's a really cool game, which is kind of hard to play now unless you have the actual game and the actual hardware. But it's still one of the cooler takes on the monster versus man thing that's been done to death in video games. But hey, it's one of the best. We love it. Now at number 4, we're going to talk about Alien vs. Predator. Yes, there are a ton of these games, but we're going to specifically talk about the one that came out in 1999. It offers up 3 different campaigns where you can play as either a Marine, Alien, or Predator. Each campaign is different, with each character having their own set of skills. Marines are more like playing a traditional FPS with guns and whatnot. Aliens have way more mobility, they're able to scale walls, they climb across ceilings. Basically, it's all melee attacks. Then you have the Predator, who has a few different tools at its disposal. Think of everything you've seen in the movies, that's basically what you have. Wrist blades, shoulder-mounted guns, cloaking devices, infrared division. So I don't think I have to say it, but yeah, Predator's way cooler, and it's a cooler campaign. I mean, Predators and Aliens might not really be the traditional type monster, but there's a few games on this list that are pretty similar, so this one kind of falls more in the monstrous category than playing as an actual monster. But then again, basically, Predators are high-tech space monsters, right? And number 3 is Maneater, of course, one of the most enjoyable concepts for a game. And while a little bit simple in its execution, I just have to go ahead and say I really enjoy Maneater. Is it a game that says something about the state of the world? Not really, no. It's a game that lets you play as a shark to go to a bunch of places and kill a bunch of things. Also, you mutate as you collect mutagens. I like to call the game Tony Hawk's Pro Sharker, even though it's not necessarily exactly like a Tony Hawk game. It just reminds me of that era where games were sillier and didn't all try to be a movie. And how can you not enjoy doing this kind of ridiculous crap? Maneater is an absolute delight, and why the hell wouldn't we include it on this list? Seriously. At number 2, finally, so here we are at a straight-up monster game, distilled to one of its purest possible forms. War of the Monsters takes everything you know and love about that old 50s old pulp sci-fi aesthetic and turns it into what actually ended up being a really cool 3D fighting game. It's set in the 1950s, the world is under a threat of an alien invasion, so scientists from around the world team up to create a weapon to combat the saucers, which actually works, but not without short-circuiting them and causing them to crash on Earth and seep out radioactive sludge, which then births a ton of monsters. Hey, so that's worse. It's obviously inspired by classic monster movies like Godzilla, King Kong. You definitely get that vibe, but at its core, it's still a fighting game. Instead of the traditional one-on-one structure, the fights can include up to 4 players in a sort of battle royale type scenario, and the cast of playable characters you have are really something else. You get stuff like a massive gorilla, a giant 4-armed rock monster, think Goro from Mortal Kombat, but lava-ish, a mutated praying mantis that's Godzilla-sized and can fly. I mean, look at him slicing these other guys up with his big old claws, as well as some unlockable characters like Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal. There are a few robots in the mix, but it's mostly monster on monster mayhem, which is what we are all here for, right? Finally, at number 1, we have Rampage. I know we're old and this might not be as cool as a pick as it would have been a few years ago, but Rampage is pretty much the perfect monster game. I mean, look at it. You play it as a giant monster who's wreaking havoc on a city, and that's the point of the game. That's it. You're here to ruin everything. You climb buildings, you pluck people out of windows, you eat them, you kick the crap out of the building until it collapses, you destroy military vehicles, you do everything. It's a blast. Best part though, it is co-op. You can sit down on your couch with a couple of controllers and play it with your friends. The OG arcade game's great, but probably the best version of its Rampage World Tour. There were some interesting additions made in Rampage 2, but after that it got a little stale. Rampage 2 added some new monsters like a giant lobster, which is silly but awesome at the same time. There's just something about Rampage that stuck with me. It might be the sheer frivolity and ridiculousness. Anytime I hit an arcade, that's where I'd go. I'd grab some tokens and waste my youth. Real quick, we do have a couple of bonuses for you, like Untitled Goose Game. Yeah, not technically a monster. You're a goose, but like you're a monster of a goose. He's here to ruin lives and bring destruction. He has the spirit of a monster as far as I'm concerned. Then we have Kirby. All of the Kirby. And just look at Kirby. Do you trust him? If so, why? As soon as you have your back turned, he's gonna eat you. He's gonna take your physical traits and then he's gonna steal your job or just replace you altogether. Then of course we have Urban Yeti because whoa, you get to play as a Yeti, duh, but he's in the city. I'm not gonna go ahead and say this is like one of the best ones or anything, but it's notable for how strange it is. But that's some of the games we thought were most interesting for playing as a monster. But we want to hear from you, so meet us down in the comments, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So subscribe, enable all notifications. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.